Welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Randy Sturgill. He's a humanitarian activist. Randy, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so very much. I certainly appreciate the opportunity for being on the program.
Yes, thank you. Well, Randy, it's almost a year, well, it's over a year and a month now that we haven't spoke on this show. And that's when the Ukraine-Russian war had just started. And you were one of those who waste no time to go to Ukraine and give your input. Ever since then, you came back here to the U.S. and you were putting together all kind of assistance for the Ukraine. Could you educate the public to who you really are?
Okay, well, my name again is Randy Sturgill, and I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. And my wife and I were much like other Americans, watching television and seeing the terrible news coming from Ukraine after the Russians' invasion in late February of 2022. And me being an activist anyway, it's like my wife and I were saying, what can we do that would benefit these people? And we saw the fathers and the sons taking their families to buses and to trains, leaving Ukraine. And this would have been, during early March, I guess, that we saw this and had an idea of, what can we do that maybe no one else is doing? And again, seeing these images of these men going back to fight as territorial defense people, and we said, they're not dressed. Maybe maybe they need uniforms. Maybe they need boots. So we made a couple of contacts in Ukraine, and that was a need. So during that time, we kicked into action, reaching out to supporters of efforts. And to make a long story short, I ended up with a military surplus wholesale warehouse that ended up only being 90 miles from my home. So went up there, made the first purchase of items to be shipped over, and not knowing where they would be going to, really in getting in. Wanted to make sure they were getting into the right hands. So actually made the trip over to Ukraine and met up with some territorial defense folks, some regular army folks in Lutsk, and then on to Kyiv, and was embedded with a brigade there in Kyiv of territorial defense. And that's where I was first interviewed by you. And they were that there was a U.S. Marine that was, retired U.S. Marine that was with us, and a couple of the other folks that were able to guide us in being able to get these things to as quickly as possible the folks that needed. And this was like just a few days after the Russians were driven back out of Bucha. So that there was a need for uniforms and boots with those brave fighters up there. So we actually went up again days after the brutal massacre of civilians and all had taken place there, and got these folks fixed up. So anyway, again, trying to condense this story, back to America, and smaller actions were taking place in smaller amounts. We lost the free connection of getting things shipped. So, on top of purchasing the items that were specifically needed for specific units, just the cost of shipping it's really expensive. So, yes. It's like different. Again, targeting specific. Yes. So, like right now, we're targeting a group that is on the front down near Zaporizhia, and these are frontline medical supplies, tourniquets, quick clot bandages, Israeli bandages, and different things used specifically for the front line troops to stabilize injuries until they can get to a field hospital, and then on to much better care after that. So again, anything that we can do to save a life, we're trying to do that now.
That's beautiful. You know what? One of the things that amazes me here is that, to just give a little bit of insight on your background, you were a coordinator in as a marine biologist or something like that in the past, with working with certain deep sea exploration. Could you tell us a little bit about that, so we can give the public an understanding of transitioning out of one thing, even though you probably would have been retired before, and have to be faced with these kind of calamities in Ukraine and doing so much here right now? Could you just compare and contrast a little what your life was like before?
Well, going back to, I like to refer to it as my life when I was a puppy. Would be going back to my profession, but before even making a transition into nonprofit work, I was in law enforcement. And retired from that, and was working in a few political campaigns. Mm-hmm. And at the end of one of the campaigns, there was a job posting for a campaign field organizer, mm-hmm. For the Southeast U.S., and then we had moved from Central North Carolina to mm-hmm. Coastal North Carolina, mm-hmm. and reading the job posting, I said, wow, this sounds like a really nice job, being right here, on the coast and protecting our coastal waters. And so I said, well, I told my wife, I will probably not get this job at my age. Mm-hmm. They would probably be looking for someone younger. But anyway, I applied for this job at Oceana Incorporated, mm-hmm. and Oceana is the largest solely oceans environmental group in the world. Mm-hmm. And I applied, went through the process, and was hired. And I would go out and have meetings and bring people together, would lobby elected officials, the president, congressional members, U.S. Senate members, all the way down to the state legislators and the governors of states for different issues. The campaign, I guess, I worked on the most during my 10 years as a senior campaign organizer for Oceana would be the fight to keep the oil industry from drilling off the Atlantic coast of the U.S. And we had many people saying, "Look, you're taking on the oil industry here. You're not going to accomplish what you're trying to do." But in the end, we did accomplish that, and we're still oil free. And it looks like the oil industry is not showing any interest right now in coming back. And so that being able to get out, speak to the people, being able to hopefully let them know, let the facts speak for themselves, made it an easy campaign. To that extent. When you're dealing with truth, you're of course you have a really strong ally in truth. Same being looking at the things. I had made so many contacts, so many friends, so many supporters that I basically reached out to these same supporters on getting materials for Ukraine.
Beautiful.
And so that's kind of where I'm at. And I like to hopefully say during my part of my life that has been an activist, I always like to say I feel like I want to be an activist for what is right.
Excellent. Tell me something. When you recognize that you just left a world of a civilized world, to go to the Ukraine at that point, to see so much chaos and so much calamities surrounding you, what was your gut feeling then?
Well, it was like, I just, in 2022, I couldn't believe it was this type thing, what was happening, that Russia was invading in such a large force, and that it was just so blatant that shocked me. The things that shocked me as well was the brutality that was shown to the Ukrainian people by these invaders, the senseless murders and executions, and just the total disregard for human life. It amazed me. But then flipping this around, what amazed me too was the strength, the bravery, and the want of democracy and freedom in every Ukrainian that I met during this time over there. And everywhere I went, I was again amazed at the welcome that they gave me, and that was a concern. Just not knowing. I mean, it's like 6 months before this. If you had asked me to name one Ukrainian city or town, I couldn't have done it. And it was like it was here that I was able to learn pretty quickly as much about Ukraine as I possibly could.
So tell me something. When you think this war comes to an end, and I hope that will happen pretty soon, do you think the frame or state of mind the Ukrainians have now, do you think it would be the same again?
I'm sure there are going to be scars with these folks for their lifetimes. I feel like they're not going to forget. They're going to remember the every single brave Ukrainian that has died fighting, the other Ukrainians, citizens that were killed senselessly. They'll not forget this, I don't think. And what I believe is they will, when this war ends and they're victorious in this war, that they will build back with the same commitment and vigor that they have shown on the battlefield. So, and all of us wish this war was over yesterday, and for it to be over is such a simple deed for the Russians would be just to leave, go home.
Yes, back in the prehistoric times, countries were fighting to covet each other's land, and the United States was like that too. All nations were trying to fight to grab as much land as they possibly can. But it also came a time when that has settled. Everyone respect each other's nation as a sovereign nation, and in regard, they try to work with each other. Now, it's really amazing that Russia at this time still believe that the United Soviet Socialist Republic should be still in existence, and they want to reclaim those countries. And as a person who worked with all levels of government before, do you think that it will come a time where Russia will still pursue fighting other nations, European nations that they believe is rightfully theirs, or will they just give them, say enough is enough? What is your opinion about that?
I really don't know. I would have, this particular action or actions that they have taken into Georgia and threatening and, I don't understand. I don't understand the mentality. Again, like you have said that it is a time where it looks like this land grab would have been well in the past by now. And so, it's like, the vast majority of the world cannot get into the mindset of the Russians with this. And again, they're backslide into a more communist mindset is amazing. And where they have reached out into the Russians have reached out into other countries and still are today down into Africa, into the Caribbean here off the U.S. coast, into South America. You would think, what is enough? Again, I'm just speaking as one 70-year-old man from North Carolina. This has made me more aware of these senseless type actions that, take place in the Middle East, into Africa. Again, the senseless land grabs, and I don't know. This is well above my pay grade, and I don't understand. I just hope and pray that it becomes a thing that is only recognized and seen in history books.
Absolutely. It's what's troubling is that now Russia is recruiting actually little kids for the military, and I'm talking about kids probably in the early teens, maybe 12 or 13 years old. And in respect of that, there are younger kids who are just in the 8, 9 years old, just watching these kids getting recruited. And when you look at that kind of atmosphere, it's telling you that they're breeding a young generation to carry on the same kind of philosophical views of what dictatorship is all about. The same thing goes for China. China's eyeing Taiwan, and I believe they are looking strongly to see what would be the outcome of United States of America's support to the Ukraine and its allies, and that would send a strong message to China. As a matter of fact, there are moments where they start a wage war in the presence of Taiwan. It's essential, I believe, that United States of America and its allies maintain its support to the Ukraine if they is to save this whole system of democracy, despite of how much shambles it may be in right now. If they is to preserve it, I think it's vitally important that the war between Ukraine and Russia should be won by Ukraine and should be supported by its allies. What would you like to see in the final analysis with Russia and Ukraine in terms of respecting Ukraine as a sovereign nation? What would you like to see right now?
Well, first of all, I would like to see the bloodshed stop immediately. There's already been too many good Ukrainians, whether civilian or military, that have died, and I would just hope that it would end as soon as possible. As far as like if it did end as soon as possible, I would just hope that Russia would again respect the sovereignty of nations around the world, and because you could look at so many things before this war and before Russia got involved with actual combat in Syria. It seemed like Russia was a different Russia, and there was this period. It was different than when they were a Soviet power, and it seemed like our countries were relatively in a much better place then.
That's right. That's correct.
And why this this madman would choose to disrupt all that?
Correct.
Could it have been because he didn't see it coming? He thought maybe the U.S. and Western European nations would just sit idly by. Maybe that was a shocker.
Yes.
And then you look at the instability there with them fighting, almost going into civil war a week or two ago.
Absolutely. Tell me one thing, Randy. What is your contact information that, should people want to give assistance, they should reach out to you to?
Well, I personally do not have a 501c3, a nonprofit. in many of the actions I have done early on, there were a matter of people sending me checks, Venmoing me money, Cash App, 2 or 3 different areas. But over the last 8 months, I've been associated with a couple of nonprofits, one in Canada that is Ukrainian Harmony, and which is based in Western Canada. And then here in the U.S., like 2 hours to the west of me, in a city, Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is home to Fort Bragg, or the new name, Fort Liberty. And there is a military husband and wife there that have a 501c3 there. UkrainianEfforts.org.
Beautiful.
And but yeah, those would be the two central areas that we're using now. And right here in my home office, I have a whole stack of supplies here that I'm preparing to send over to the front as we speak.
Well, beautiful, Randy. We come to the end of our program. I want to thank you very much for giving us valuable information, and I hope that the public would receive it. And